You're listening to Civic Media. Stay up to date on the latest news and information for your local community and Wisconsin by signing up for our free email newsletter. Visit civicmedia.us/email to get started. This is your WXCO Daily News Roundup for Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 FM and 1230 AM in Wausau.
Civic Media News. I'm Terry Bell. Here's what Wisconsin needs to know. Wisconsin has a $4.5 billion budget surplus. Wisconsin also has close to $2 billion in its rainy day fund. That's a record. Governor Evers says the extra money should be reinvested in the next state budget. Republicans have said they want to give the money back to taxpayers. Most public schools in Wisconsin will get more money from the state this year. The Department of Public Instruction is out with its general state aid figures. 2/3 of school districts will get more money, a third will get less. In all, Wisconsin is sending about $5.5 billion to local schools. Today is the last day to register to vote in Wisconsin by mail or online. In-person early voting starts next week. Kate Martin is Menominee City Clerk. She says planning ahead will ensure local clerks run a free and fair election.
The less work that they have to do in order to help voters get through that process on Election Day, the better and the least frustrating it is for voters themselves.
Martin says voters can help by having required documentation on hand when they register. Former President Barack Obama will campaign for Kamala Harris in Wisconsin next week. He'll join Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Walz in Madison on Tuesday. Tuesday is also the first day of in-person early voting in Wisconsin. Wisconsin lawmakers are looking at potential ways to curb artificial intelligence abuses. Sarah Alt is an ethical AI expert who serves on the legislature's AI task force. At a meeting yesterday, she sounded skeptical that licensing and professional codes could help.
Then people just go looking for places where they can work outside of that code.
This summer, the governor's AI task force recommended K-12 digital literacy training, help for people who lose their jobs due to AI, and investing in more research. At least 6 Wisconsin poultry farms are giving away thousands of chickens after an Iowa-based processor suddenly closed last week. Farmers who need help can contact the Wisconsin Farm Center. I'm Terry Bell, Civic Media News. Here's what you need to know closer to home.
For WXCO News, I'm Brittany Merlot. Senator Tammy Baldwin stopped in Wausau on her Wisconsin farm tour on Tuesday. With a visit to Shoe Ginseng Farms,
probably 90% of the ginseng produced in America is produced right here in Marathon County. So this is a tariff situation that is like a double whammy in this part of the state.
She said a trade war with China started the new tariffs implemented under the Trump administration.
When you see something, for example, like steel dumping, where they're trying to undercut an entire industry, we have to fight back and protect our domestic ability to produce things we need for infrastructure and our national security.
And Baldwin does not agree with the tariff proposal by Trump, which argues for massive tariffs on all products.
It's almost a sales tax on every U.S. consumer. And so I think targeted are very appropriate. It fights for American workers, but I don't think we should do the wholesale on everyone.
The lives of hundreds of thousands of chickens are in limbo as of last Friday, and several area farms have been hung out to dry after a sudden closure of an Iowa-based poultry company. It's a complicated story that spans multiple states, but it's affecting people right here in Wisconsin. Pure Prairie Poultry started up in 2021 and sold many different chicken products. The business had contracts with farmers that are located in Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin to raise their chickens to later be processed. These contracts not only gave them the chickens to raise, but also the food and reimbursement for their bedding and heating. That all came to a stop last week, though, because since April, they stopped paying for loans that they were given. Pure Prairie Poultry then tried to file for bankruptcy in September, which was denied. Now, the company has dissolved, leaving local farmers stranded. So now they're giving away chickens as donations. You can find the barn addresses to get free chickens at bullfallsradio.com. It's Cranberry Farmer Appreciation Week. Think about all the hardworking farmers who have shaped the state's agricultural landscape for generations. Cranberry farming in Wisconsin has deep roots, dating back to the indigenous tribes such as the Menominee, Ojibwa, and Ho-Chunk, who harvested the berries with their bare hands. As time went on, farming technology and harvesting methods began to rapidly change, now producing 60% of the nation's cranberry supply. For 29 consecutive years, the state has held the title for top cranberry producer in the United States, making the fruit a key player fire in the state's economy. This spotlight shines on these dedicated farmers this week as their commitment to sustainable practices ensures that cranberry farming remains a cornerstone of Wisconsin's heritage for generations to come. And this growing season, cranberry farmers had to deal with many different weather variations. As harvest is now underway, farmers across the state say they have been pleased with the plant's product this season. Farmers who were impacted by Hurricane Helene are getting help from Wisconsin farmers by delivering hay for their animals in North Carolina and Tennessee. A Merrill farmer, Hans Britton Moser, sent 54 large bales of hay to North Carolina. He says it was important for him to give back to those who need it most. This initiative was started by Fremark Innovations, a window supplier in Merrill. So far, 10 trucks from across the country have delivered hay to states impacted by the hurricanes. They said that they've gathered 14,000 large round bales, 450 large square bales, and 4,000 small bales of hay through donations. And they're currently looking for more drivers to take more hay down to impacted states. And Wisconsin hospitals are also contending with a hurricane-induced shortage of IV fluids. Hurricane Helene hit a Baxter International plant in North Carolina that produces much of the nation's supply of sterile intravenous fluids. And that's what you need to know. I'm Brittany Merlot for WXCO.
The Packers have a new kicker. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. The Packers have signed a new place kicker. He's 33-year-old Brandon McManus, who was with the Denver Broncos for 8 seasons. In 2023, McManus was accused of sexual assault by 2 flight attendants during a Jaguars team flight to London. The NFL investigated and cleared McManus of any charges. The Packers releasing their rookie kicker, Braden Narveson, who led the league in missed field goals with 5 in 6 games. College football. The Badgers head to Evanston to face the Northwestern Wildcats. Now, last November, Northwestern beat Wisconsin 24-10. This week's game to be played at a temporary stadium while Ryan Field is being rebuilt. Luke Fickell.
Whatever they ask us to play or tell us to play, we'll play. If it's a parking lot, we'll play in the parking lot. I don't think we got a whole lot to say after, how we performed and how we played last year. So I could care less where we're playing at. And anytime you go on the road in the Big Ten, you're going to have to handle some things, whether it's, a new stadium, whether it's the wind, whether it's a locker room. It is what it is.
That's Badgers head coach Luke Fickell. With sports, I'm Mike Clemens.
On your entertainment beat, I'm Pete Schwaba. After Joker Folie à Deux took a nosedive like no movie ever before in its second week of release, and the box office down last weekend overall, Hollywood is hoping the latest comic book movie is a savior. Ticket sales last weekend were down 43% from last year, according to Deadline. That could change in the next couple weeks when the latest chapter of Venom hits the screen. Sony's Venom: The Last Dance opens October 25th, and the studio is hoping for a $70 million take, which would be less than the 2 previous installments, but still an impressive opening. Horror films have made strong showings pretty much all year. How does a milk diet sound? On her Not Today Pal podcast that she hosts with fellow Soprano cast member Robert Eiler, Sopranos star Jamie Lynn Sigler said she went on an 8-day whole milk diet where that's all she put into her system. She calls it a milk cleanse and says it helps rid one's system of parasites. Whole milk for 8 days? Thanks, but I'll take the tapeworm. It seems like people cannot hate the Joker sequel enough. The film has reviewed poorly with critics and audiences, and a legendary screenwriter. Paul Schrader is jumping into the fray, saying he went shopping in the middle of the film. Schrader says he got so bored he went to the store and came back and watched about 10 minutes and then just left altogether. The man who wrote Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, and Affliction said, "I don't like either of those people. I don't like them as actors. I don't like them as characters. If they came to your house, you'd slip out the back door." That's right. He hates the movie so much he'd leave his house while strangers were there. Ouch. Speaking of the Joker, the studio behind Folie à Deux, Warner Brothers, says it expects to lose between $150 and $200 million on the movie. Variety reports that the film's domestic box office take will probably top out at about $65 million and about $210 million globally. Unfortunately, it cost $200 million to make and $100 million to market. That's more money than I make in a year. Actor, activist, and Wisconsin native Mark Ruffalo literally walked the walk in support of Native Americans voting. Ruffalo participated in a Walk to the Polls event with the Navajo Nation activist Allie Red Horse Young. The Oscar-nominated actor has supported Native American issues for years. Yahoo Entertainment reports that the walk took place in Fort Defiance, Arizona, and was 3 miles long. The purpose? To urge indigenous people in Arizona to go to the polls. You would think a high-profile gig like hosting the Oscars would not be hard to fill. It seems people who are good at it get tired of doing it, possibly because one joke can get you slapped in the face by an irrational actor husband. The search for a host for next spring's Oscars broadcast is on, and according to Deadline, Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds are being considered. The duo starred in the film Deadpool, which has become one of the highest-grossing films ever. Other celebrities being considered include Dwayne Johnson, Amy Poehler, and Will Ferrell. Billy Farrell would have my vote. For more showbiz fun, tune in to Nightlight with me, Pete Schwaba, weeknights from 6 to 8 p.m. on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Mostly sunny today with a high in the mid-50s this afternoon. The wind out of the west to south at 5 to 15. Tonight it'll be clear with a low of 32. Tomorrow sunny and breezy, 62. On Friday, sunshine with a high of 68. I'm meteorologist Sean Cable. Temperature now 30.
That's your WXCO Daily News Roundup from Civic Media. Subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you find your podcasts. Find more news at bullfallsradio.com. The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.